A pattern change is coming and it's going to reverse the weather we've been having and the weather we're about to have. Welcome in, my friends, to another exciting edition of Cold Rain's Weather World, the most fun-filled, action-packed weather show on the internet. And I want to thank you for being here today. We've got a lot of weather to talk about as usual. And here at Cold Rain's Weather World, we've got all the weather. That means your work week forecast, your weekend forecast, a little tropical mischief that's out there, the long range look ahead, and we'll wrap up the show as we always do with our geological and solar update to keep you on top of everything that's going on out there as it relates to anything that might impact you where you are. And that would include asteroids falling from the sky or other space debris, which we fortunately have none of today. But we're going to get started, as we always do, with our Weather IQ question to test your weather IQ. And today's question is related to earthquakes, and it's a very easy one, and tomorrow's question is not so easy. So thought I would start you out here on this topic with an easy one. So here it is. What is the name of the boundary where two tectonic plates meet and often cause earthquakes? A fault line, subduction zone, crater rim, or a rift valley? If you know the answer, type it in the comments section as usual. If you don't, all you have to do is just wait until the end of the show. Then I will tell you what the answer is, and then you can run out and tell all your friends, hey, guess what I learned at Cold Rain's Weather World? But hopefully you learned this one way before Cold Rain's Weather World. All right, we'll get on with the rest of the show starting right now. And the rest of our show starts right now, and it starts with the water vapor imagery. And as I said before, we've got a pattern change that's en route, and it's going to reverse the weather that we're currently having and the weather that we're about to have over the next couple of days. And that includes a severe weather threat over today, tomorrow, and into Friday as well. So we're going to take a look at all of those things here coming up in just a minute. But as I said, we're going to start with our water vapor imagery because it shows us a couple of important things that are impacting our weather today and over the next couple of days. One is a big trough that's swinging in up here in the northern plains. We've got another trough out here in the southwestern United States, another trough punching in from Mexico and working into Texas today. Another trough still over here in the Mississippi River Valley, and that is moving east as well. And troughs are important because they exist in the mid-levels and they're areas of cooling, and out ahead of these cooling and spin, and out ahead of that is where you find showers and thunderstorms, and behind them you usually find sinking air and fair weather. And you can kind of see that here with this dry punch of air here and another one here and another one up here. That no rain coming out of that. All the rain's out ahead of it. So that's what we're looking at. And as the troughs move in, they create clouds, they create lift, they create precipitation. And if you have unstable air, you can get severe weather outbreaks. And so this is what's going on with the satellite picture today, or the water vapor imagery. And as you can see by this, much of the east coast and central portion of the country is under significant cloud cover today. So that is going to play a role in keeping temperatures down across parts of the country. And we'll see that on our temperature map coming up just a minute. Looking at the alerts map, we've got a little bit of a severe thunderstorm watch down here near Corpus Christi, South Texas. Flash flood warnings are up, where we've seen 2 or 3 inches of rain from a thunderstorm complex. There's a cluster of storms down here and it's moving out. We've seen a little bit of severe weather this morning. Fog is a problem up here in central Nebraska and just southern and eastern South Dakota and northern Kansas. So if you're driving around up there, turn the lights on. Remember to run those low lights and keep the speed down a little bit so you can see what's going on in front of you. Heat advisories are up in the San Joaquin Valley over here in Southern California. We've got extreme heat watches up in effect. That is for 100-degree temperatures that are set to occur later this week. So that's what's going on here. Looking at the surface map for today, essentially a low pressure associated with one of those troughs that is working into the Mississippi River Valley. And we've got a front, sort of a stationary, quasi-stationary front that extends back into Texas, serve as a boundary and a focus for showers and thunderstorms. And then wedging all the way down the East Coast. This is something you typically see in wintertime, but you've got this high pressure up here. It's feeding in cold air down along the eastern slopes of the Alps, and it wedges in. And so it's been a cool, cloudy, and dreary couple of days here in North Carolina, where I'm at, and I know up and down from South Carolina up into Virginia as well. So we're just all socked in with clouds. We've got severe weather potentially this afternoon in Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, up here in North Texas. And then another little area of potential severe weather in central Texas and in southwest Texas too. And we could also see some heavy rain down here in Texas. But anywhere from Texas up to Wyoming, over to Wisconsin, over to New York and Pennsylvania and places like that down to Florida, we could see severe or thunderstorms, just general thunderstorm activity and showers, and then showers and rain up here in southern New England as well. So that's what's going on out there today. Over the next 5 days, we're looking at general rain for the eastern 2/3 of the country, but that's going to press east as we go through time. So look at this. This is the 24-hour precipitation that has fallen starting ending tomorrow morning. So Thursday morning, from Wednesday morning to Thursday morning, this is how much precipitation is going to fall. Really don't look too much at these gray areas, but focus mostly on the green, and where you get into the green, that's 1/10 of an inch. Where you get into the blue, that's 1/2 inch. The yellows are and higher, or 1 inch or higher. Okay, so that's what's going on here with this map. And as we look at this, we've got rain out here in the Central Plains, rain over Texas, rain over the Great Lakes into the mid-Atlantic and so forth. A little bit of rain down here in Florida. So the shower activity today, but a lot of these gray areas are going to remain mostly dry. As we get into Thursday during the day and overnight Thursday night, we see that sort of press to the south and to the east. So much of the Tennessee Valley into the Ohio Valley and down into the deep south, that's where the lion's share of the rain is going to fall. Still going to see some rain back in Texas and some areas of the plains. A little bit of rain up here in northern New England and down into the southeast, of course, as we get into Thursday. Then Friday, we've got a chance of severe weather along the east coast, and we're going to take a look at that in more detail here in a minute. But cold front is pressing south. We've got high pressure building in, so it's starting to shut the rain off for most of the plains and down here into Texas, and we get on in to the Great Lakes and the East Coast and eastward. That's where we find most of the rain as we get into Friday. Saturday, really looking much, much better for much of the nation, starting to dry out across much of the nation. The signal is here for maybe a shower or two somewhere in the plains up into the upper Mississippi Valley, but there's going to be a low pressure that develops along the coast, link some moisture back in, and that's where we're going to find the heaviest rain up in New England as we get into the latter part of the weekend. And then by Sunday, that all starts to work out and then leave a little bit of rain left in northern Maine, but that should be working out as the day goes along and nighttime rolls around, and a little bit of shower activity possible left with a lingering cold frontal boundary down here across the southeast, but really should be drying out as we get on into Monday across much of the east. And we've got a trough working into the west, and so that'll set the stage for potentially unsettled weather out west. Now, looking at the temperatures as we go on through the course of the week, one of these days I'm going to get this thing on here and I'm going to get it situated so that it is ready for us when we look at it. But very much, let's get our little drawing tool off the screen for a second. It wants to flip onto the other screen. That's fine. But anyway, we've got a little bit of warmer temperatures up here in New England today. So warmer up here than it is in parts of the south, so southeast anyway. So looking at below normal temperatures across a good portion of real estate here in the nation's midsection. Down into the south, we've got 80s and 90s prevailing here in the southeast. A little bit cooler as we work into North Texas, but see 90s working all the way up into the Canadian border out west. So it's going to be a warm day out west. As we go on into Thursday, it starts to back off just a little bit in northern sections of the northwest, but it's still 80s and 90s, even hundreds starting to show up in the desert southwest. 80s across much of the south and southeast into the Tennessee Valley, and we're seeing a little bit of cooler weather across the nation's midsection up into the northeast, where we'll find temperatures below normal, warming up. Canada's very warm. We've got a big ridge up there, and so we'll see that warm temperatures, those warm temperatures continue to work into the northern plains, and you see that on Friday, really baking here in the northern plains, really cooking in the desert southwest. That's where those heat advisories are in effect for extreme heat watches. Temperatures over 100 degrees out here across much of California, the desert southwest. Cool in the Mississippi River Valley all the way up into the northeast with 80s and 90s down in toward Florida. Saturday, much the same, warm out west, cooler off in the northeast. As we transition to the southeast, we start to see temperatures in the 80s again. And then finally by Sunday, cool in the northwest as a trough works in there, warm in the southeast, but not quite as warm as it was Friday and Saturday, and then very warm in the central plains all the way across the nation's midsection. Trough in the northeast still hanging on, bringing some clouds up there. Showers are departing, as we said earlier, and then 80s and 90s in the southeast. So that is what we're looking for as we go on through your work week into the weekend. Now, before we take a look at the severe weather threat and the long-range outlook, way back in 1942, there was a big-time rain event in Smethport, Pennsylvania. Torrential rain fell, and it caused massive flooding. 34.5 inches of rain fell in 12 hours, and that still remains the 12-hour rainfall record in the United States. This caused severe flash flooding and damage to the region. You can see that in the pictures here, but that was a ton of rain. It was caused by a thunderstorm complex that just sort of lingered and rained. It rained and rained and rained. And so that was it's interesting that that is still, back in 1942, the 12-hour rainfall record for the U.S. Now, we've got a couple of more days of severe weather to get through before the pattern changes up and shuts off the severe weather spigot, so to speak. And this afternoon is no exception. The SPC has highlighted 3 different areas for a level 2 slight risk of severe weather. The biggest one is up here in eastern Colorado, extends from there into the eastern sections of Kansas and Oklahoma, and includes the northern panhandle of Texas. So just east of Pueblo into Garden City to Wichita to Woodward down here toward Abilene. That's where we find the greatest risk of severe weather today. Also another area here in from Austin over to Amarillo, and then just west of Fort Stockton down here in Texas. Certainly could see some severe weather in these 2 areas where we've got strong instability, and that little wave I showed you kind of working out of New Mexico, that's going to interact with that instability and create showers and thunderstorms down here. The biggest risk, though, is up here in the northern section where we find the greatest tornado threat, wind threat, and hail threat. And we're looking at a potentially large hail to very large hail threat again today. That trough that is coming in from the north is actually cooling the atmosphere, creating steep lapse rates, and those vigorous updrafts will suspend those hailstones a little bit longer. With the lower freezing levels, you have a little more ice accumulation, and therefore you're going to see potential for larger hail. We didn't have a lot of severe weather reports yesterday, about 36 I think, but we could see that number increase today. As the thunderstorms developed, some of the models are showing linear segments like a bow echo coming out of this that would enhance the wind threat. If that looks to continue in the modeling later today, the SPC probably will upgrade this to an enhanced level 3 risk. So that's what's going on out there today, folks. So pay attention if you're in any of those areas. Across the rest of the Deep South, kind of a boundaries lingering down here, some instability along the Gulf. So any storms that fire up could go severe for a brief time, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of organization to that activity, hence the marginal risk. Same again tomorrow from eastern New Mexico all the way over to northern Florida and the southern East Coast. And so that's where we'll find the greatest chance of thunderstorms, and some of those again could be severe. It doesn't look like there's a lot of organization to those either, so we'll see if there's a slight risk that makes its way in here by tomorrow. But as of now, just a marginal risk, but you still need to pay attention to what's going on. There's our typical daily gateway timeout. But if we look on into Friday, I'll refresh the screen here. Hopefully it pops back up at some point soon, but you'll see, there it is on Friday. You'll see a marginal risk that extends up from the Delmarva region all the way back into southeastern New Mexico, extends along the Gulf Coast where that instability boundary is. But on Friday, we've got a trough that's swinging in the upper atmosphere. This is going to be a much more of a major trough because it's sort of a full latitude trough. It encompasses areas, from up here in the Great Lakes and down here through the lower Mississippi Valley and Deep South, and it's going to be moving to the east, and out ahead of that is where we find a cold front, and that cold front is going to help to organize showers and thunderstorms, and we see that slight risk already set up for places like Raleigh down into Columbia, South Carolina, so central portions of the Carolinas. But we may see this expand over time. We're going to see clusters and line segments, maybe a continuous line, a QLCS, and see an organized wind threat as we go on through the day Friday. So we'll have to pay attention out here in the Carolinas. Could be an active weather day there. Now, as we get on down the road, let's take a look and see what's going to happen here. So this is Friday morning. So you see that trough I was telling you about? There it is right here. We've got kind of one here, one here. Those are kind of in the process of combining. And as we go through time, what we're going to see is this whole complex swing off to the east. Big ridge way up here in Canada. I told you yesterday, when you see these big skinny ridges, eventually they'll poke off and just sort of close off here, and you'll get a ridge, sort of a block up here, and then flow below it. So watch what happens as we go on out in time here. This is Friday as we go on into the weekend. See that how that sort of begins to pinch off up here and close off. But look at this big trough in the eastern section, big ridge out west. And you know what that means? Warm temperatures out west, very little precipitation, cool temperatures in the east with unsettled weather, and that is moving out in the form of a low pressure up the coast that is moving on off to the north and to the east, and that will persist through Sunday and into the Sunday evening hours in northern New England. But we're going to see that move. So watch what happens as we go on out into early next week. That trough begins to diminish over the east. The ridge axis moves to the center part of the country, and when you have a big ridge over you, it's very difficult to get a lot of precipitation. A new trough begins to form out west, and watch this as we get on into the middle part of next week. Boom! Big ridge in the east and a trough out west. So it completely reverses our pattern. So what do we expect out of this? Unsettled conditions returning to the west, cooler temperatures out here, and warm temperatures with very little precipitation in the east. Maybe Florida gets in on a little precipitation down here in South Florida, but other than that, it really looks high and dry and warm. It looks like summertime weather, particularly over the northern section of the eastern portion of the country. And so as we go on out in time, that trough will progress to the east. And guess what happens when you have troughs in the west that progress to the east? That's right. Severe weather breaks out in the plains again. So we could see another severe weather event as we close into the end of next week. And that's what's going on with the pattern, folks. Looking at how temperatures sort of play out here along with that. This is your 5-day temperature anomaly. So this is what we're looking at over the course of 5 days from May the 31st to June the 5th. It's going to be predominantly below normal in the east and above normal across the Canadian border and most of the west. And then as we go on out in time, look what happens as we get on into, say, June the 5th through June the 10th. Now we've got a 5-day average that's starting to pile on the warm anomalies in the east, and it cools down out west a little bit. So that's what our forecast is going to be as we get into next week. It's going to warm up in the east and reverse all of this cold, cloudy weather that we've seen. And so possibly bringing a severe weather threat back to the middle of the country by the end of next week. Now, we also have a couple of other things to take a look at here. Let's get on a display that can actually show this for us. The National Hurricane Center is still keeping its eye on this disturbance off the coast of Mexico. So conditions are favorable for development, although there is no low-level circulation yet. Okay, so that's what's going on there. And so we're going to watch this for development the next couple of days as it continues to move off to the north and to the east. And we'll be right back with our geological update. Hey, and just like that, we're back with our volcano update. Check this out. Still the 4 same areas we've been watching, but I wanted to show you this. Kilauea is erupting, and look at this. I saw this on Twitter, and this is from AccuWeather in terms of a Twitter post, but look at what Kilauea is doing, spewing up lava way up in the air, about 1,000 feet. There's a couple of different vents. One of the vents, I saw 800 feet. But look at this, just erupting to beat the band out here. And so this happens occasionally with Kilauea, and it is, we've been watching that for a while, and nothing spectacularly new is going on except these big vents are erupting, and I thought it was interesting to show with that. None of the other volcanoes are in the in the eruption phase or anything like that. We don't have anything new to watch there, but I thought it would be interesting to show that because I saw it and I wanted to show it to you. So nothing new on the earthquake front either, just some minor activity. Still watching the sun. We've got this coronal hole and wind stream coming out of that is going to produce a little bit in the way of aurora viewing for the next couple of days. And taking a look here, if we go back, we can see, hey, there's Google. So I guess we're not going to go back to our other page. Let's do it this way, and we can actually do it right here on the fly. And I'll go into our home page and take a look here, see if it'll load for me. In the meantime, while that's loading, look at this. Sunspots coming around. Here they are. Unfortunately, if you are pulling for solar flares, it's not looking all that great. The magnetism is split. You got positive out front, negative behind. You need complexity in that. You need the negative and the positive kind of interspersed there, and we're not seeing that on any of these spots yet. That could develop quickly, and so we'll keep watching it. But back on our homepage, there we go. G1 minor, G1 storm, and looking at the aurora potential for today, not all that great. So that's what's going on in the solar world, folks, and we'll keep an eye on it. But that leads us to the end of our show, and we wrap up by taking a look at the answer to today's weather IQ question. Okay, so here's the question: what is the name of the boundary where two tectonic plates meet? Easy for me to say, and often cause earthquakes. A fault line, a subduction zone, a crater rim, or a rift valley. Okay, we all know that it's a fault line. Well, we almost all know that it's a fault line. Fault line is where two tectonic plates meet, and you can have different types of faults. Sort of a subduction zone type of a fault, or a slip strike fault, and different kinds of things like that. But in any event, where tectonic plates meet is where you find geological activity in a heightened state, earthquakes, volcanoes, and so on and so forth. You know about the San Andreas fault, and you've probably heard of the New Madrid fault too, and those might be weather IQ questions coming up. So we'll just leave it at that. Anyway, folks, now you know about faults. It's not my fault. It's not your fault, but it's somebody's fault. Anyway, you know about the weather as well. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and night, or whenever you're watching this, and a great rest of the week. And we'll see you back soon. This is Cold Rain reminding you that other stations run 24/7, but we got you covered 48/14 right here, right now at Cold Rain's Weather World. Take care, folks.